I think we did a trailer reaction for Mark Antony, and it looked really fun.
It looked really good.
We should definitely watch it.
We should watch it. Wait a minute. Amit's calling us from the future.
Amit.
Melanie,
Amit?
Kathy, Melanie, Kathy, don't watch this movie. Don't watch this movie.
No.
Don't watch it.
Oh, we haven't watched it. You mean, oh no. Okay.
No.
Well, I think, Melanie, I think we should watch it so that we can discuss it with Amit, because he seems to be super. Okay. All right. Let's go check it out, and then we'll do a review of it. I think it'll be really fun. I love the look of it. It looks okay. Okay, so we're gonna go back in time and remember that time we watched this movie and didn't understand what the hell was happening.
And Amit is joining us from the future, even. So we're all
Amit
time
is
travel.
in the future. It's the
me.
perfect podcast.
Yeah.
Hello and welcome to Cinemondo with Melanie from Daisy Reviews, Amit from D54. We all had to get together to talk about this movie because we got to understand it. What?
I won't say that we ever will, even if we talk for a few hours.
The movie we're talking about is Mark Antony. And we had seen the trailer, and I thought the trailer looked like a barrel of laughs because it was 70s style. It had lots of Vegas feel to it, the lights and crazy.
Yes.
And that is pretty much all the movie has also. So lots of lights and stuff happening. So let's dig in.
I mean, it's sort of a time travel in that there's like this sort of steampunk kind of phone that allows someone to call someone from the past. Right. And then when they change events in the past, they're like, don't go to this place.
Yeah.
Then that can, then it cascades. So then the next morning that the person who made the call can wake up and their circumstances could completely have changed, you know, so which happens over and over and over again.
Circumstances keep changing.
I can't recall how long this movie, like what time period they start from to what period they end, because it wasn't, at least to me, it wasn't quite specific. I remember one time they said 1975 at the start. Yeah. I don't know if they kept, I wish they kept telling us like when they were in time. I think I would have had a better perspective as to, where we actually are, because it wasn't, this movie had a real opportunity to really showcase sort of different time periods, I felt it didn't do it as well, because it could have done things like with the fashion being different or the cars being different, or the gadgets that they used, even guns that they used potentially, but they didn't really showcase that too much. But I mean,
I think the wigs were supposed to be our signal.
I guess so. Yeah, the hairstyles.
The bad wigs, you mean? The bad wigs?
Yeah. A lot of costume
It was
design.
very loud. There was like a tonal problem that I had with it, which was everybody was yelling and screaming everything, acting hysterical at all times. And because of that, there was no elevation of emotion because everything was max. And so as you're watching it, even though nothing is really happening and they're just talking to each other, there's this manic yelling all the time. And I was like, is there supposed to be something stressful happening? They would just be talking to each other and like yelling, like, you gotta really follow out. I'm like, why is he yelling at him right now? And then the one character, I guess that was Vishal. He was the mechanic, right?
Right.
Yeah. He was just like almost non-existent. I mean, he wasn't yelling, but he would kind of have this blank look all the time.
He was supposed to be playing like this young man who was a little bit clueless and little. And I mean, it's the kind of thing that Salman Khan can pull off in his 50s somewhat. But I just didn't feel like, I don't know, and I really was kind of down on that actor Vishal for almost the entire movie. Yeah. And then he plays his father in this final climactic scene, and I'm like, oh my God. Like, I mean, he was so bland. He was so bland and not memorable. And then he brought it, but that was just five or 10 minutes of the whole movie. And then the rest of the movie, I don't know. So I will say S.J. Suryah, who plays multiple villains, different times, in all different time periods with bad wigs.
Whole generation.
Okay. S.J. Suryah, I love as a villain.
Yep.
And he understood the assignment. He brought the camp. He brought the crazy.
Yeah.
Like he was. If there was a highlight of the film for me, that was a highlight because I just felt like he was just like S.J. Suryah unleashed. I'm just gonna go nuts, right? Like,
yes. Agreed.
But there was a lot of Vishal and a lot of confusing, as Amit said, like what time period are we even in right now? Like it just became so many levels of now this has changed. Now we're all upside down again that I couldn't even keep track of where we were and what was happening.
Yeah. It's
true.
And
I think there's sort of two things that happen because like I think what you mentioned about the screaming all the time, the one character that really even infuriated me a little bit was it wasn't even Vishal, it was a character with a headband.
Yes,
I'm not sure who he was.
Hair.
Yeah, and he's having
the friend.
And he's just the friend. He's just talking to Vishal, and everything he says is screaming. And I'm like, why, dude? Like, there's no reason.
Why, dude?
But
why are you doing this?
And yeah. And the problem with that is because I think I just messaged in our chat before. Like, for a movie that's so over the top, it felt for me a bit dull because there's no elevation, there's no shifts in anything. It's like everything is one pace. And the problem that I think I enjoyed S.J. Suryah as well.
Yeah.
I think this is kind of the problem that was there with Vishal because he couldn't. If I enjoyed him going crazy at the end, but he was just another version of S.A. Suryah. Almost doing the same thing. So the battle is just like two crazy guys, and it's like, okay, this is not. It's not dynamic enough. Like there's nothing to really get me interested because they're both the same people. It feels like at times. Look, I will say, I did say like. It did have some positive points. I thought the steampunk or the diesel punk look was pretty cool.
The mechanic.
Some of the CGI was also pretty good, I thought, as well, with them floating in the air with the electricity.
But
that was not bad either. I wish they had more set pieces. Like, it felt like they were in that Vegas showroom too much of the time.
The whole time.
Or the kind of like mechanics, the garage kind of car repair place.
Yeah, good point. It felt very set bound. Like I felt like, and they would do an overview and it felt like they had a big clear empty lot and they built a set on it. And then you never saw anything else. It was these big interiors with these big, long, like tall, almost like drapes. It just felt like kind of a cheap set. And you only saw the two different, sets. And I was like, so this is the one in the past and this is one in the future. Like what? It was. And I didn't know who I was really rooting for. And then toward the end, when you talked about that great scene where he makes the entrance with the big truck and he's bald, like the father scene. That's where I'm like, this movie should have been more of this, like more attitude, less screaming. Like it felt stylized. It almost felt like they shot that first and said, this is the coolest scene. And they're like, what should we do now? Oh, I don't know. Let's have back and forth stuff, and you didn't really.
This is another case where sometimes there's something that could be a good idea, but Indian audiences and Indian theaters expect a movie to be somewhere between 2 hours and 15 minutes and 2 hours and 30 minutes long. And so you have an idea that might be great for a 90-minute movie, but it's stretched out, and then it's too much. I
really felt that in the second half. I was like, all right, I'm kind of over this time travel stuff.
It was a gratifying time travel. Like I mentioned to Melanie, it was like having Christopher Lloyd, the screaming crazy professor in Back to the Future, as the only characters in the whole movie. They're just yelling and being crazy all the time, so that you're not really sure like what is the point of all of this. I mean, I know like trying to figure out like what happened to his mother and then but who cares?
And there have been time travel movies in Tamil cinema that we've enjoyed. Kathy and I just recently talked about 24 starring Suryah.
So good.
Where he played his father, present day, and also the villain, so that was really good. And there was an emotional payoff to being able to time travel. Parent. I mean, this also had parents that were dying, but somehow there wasn't enough establishment for me to really care.
No, we didn't really care about the characters. That is the main point. Like it was such spectacle. Like it was all like big slow motion scenes and loud music and bright lights and crazy outfits. And they're all striding toward camera. And a lot of this and the floating in the air. It was all this blah. But then you're like, there's no real emotion in it, even though you're supposed to care about like the mother dying or that the father killed. Like what you kind of don't, because at this point you're like, well, who am I caring for in this? I mean, we're supposed to, I guess, care for Mark,
Vishal, I guess.
and then maybe, and then Antony is kind of the bad guy. Then he's not, and it was just sort of a. And I talked to Amit about this too. It's like an anime. Like when I watch One Piece, the anime is like, wah! Like everything's yelling and laughing and like, why not? Like this kind of thing. That's what this movie was. It was like live action anime. But the thing that One Piece did when it went to live action, turn down the volume, make it realistic. So people were excited, but they weren't screaming all the time. Like a cartoon can pull it off. But when you do it in live action, it's just like assaulted. Like, stop screaming at me or stop it already. So yeah, I found it really hard to like. I sort of wanted to because I loved the look of it. The 70s fashion was great.
Yeah.
But it felt almost too cartoonish and superficial to really draw you in.
Yeah. I also felt like, were there movie references that people who liked classic 70s or say 90s action Tamil films, that there maybe were references to movies that would be hilarious to a Tamil speaking audience that were completely not there for me. And so therefore I was just looking at things at one level, and that there maybe were layers to jokes that would be more amusing. But for me, no, I didn't get any of that. And so maybe the audiences that are really enjoying maybe they're responding to something like that. I don't know. I don't know.
Interesting. Yeah, because I think this movie is meant to be a comedy, but I don't think the comedy worked for me, to be honest. Like I didn't think of this movie as a funny movie. Like, yes, it was over the top, and there's some scenes that I might remember, especially with the end, with the sort of dancing and the fighting. I've never really understood the dancing and fighting combination, but it seems to be a common thing in Tamil cinema. I've seen it a few times. It's like slow motion dance, fight, slow motion. That's the other thing about the movie. It's a lot of. It feels like it almost tried too hard for this. Like it's over.
Try too hard is a
like set designs, costume design, slow motion editing. It does some of the stuff in action movies I don't like to do. Like it does two things: quick cuts and slow motion at the same time. A quick cut into slow motion. So you don't really feel so. Like, it's had
where am I?
It had 4 or 5 different action sequences, and all of them felt the same. Like when the last one came, I was tempted to just fast forward through them because I'm like, I've seen this before. You just showed it to me.
Yeah,
it's going to be exactly the same. And it basically was. It was just the same thing. Like, cool. This guy's doing something really cool. Slow motion. Whoa, look at his face. And then down like quick cut. Whoa, it's like, all right. This is not doing it for me. So it's overproduced. I don't need to do so much editing.
Yes.
Like, it could have just been a bit more, one shot kind of thing. Not even one shot, just like smoother. So we actually get a feeling to what's happening.
The editing made me feel like they didn't trust their material, which they shouldn't have, because the script was kind of weak. And then also, I think partly was, okay, you have a time technically. We're calling it a time travel movie, but it is literally the same as Amit calling us from Australia and going, sun's going down. It's like, oh, it is. The thing is, they didn't really time travel. They just talked to somebody on the phone. Like it was information. So I felt like, why didn't they amplify it in time travel? Like, why didn't they figure out a way to, they can talk on, let's time travel. Why are we just talking on the phone? It was kind of dorky. And like, they're on the phone floating. Have them go through a portal and end up. I just didn't understand why they kept it so confined to just, hey, it's me. Don't go to the club. Done. It's like, why is that? You should have him going there and trying to convince him not to do it in person. It just would have been more interesting. I didn't understand the main concept, which was talking on the phone.
Correct. And it didn't work very well, especially in the second half. Like I was getting it's getting very repetitive with the father, whoever the character kept screwing up. I'm like, okay, you're gonna screw up again. Okay, you're gonna screw up again. All right, that was the whole second half.
Screw up again.
It just felt like it's like he's like, I'm not gonna live because you have to do what I have to do as your son.
Yep.
He tries to do it once. Nope. He screws it up. He goes again.
Try again.
It's like, all right, again. Like 3 times. Like, come on. Like
try again and then try again. And that's like, no one else can talk on the phone, or you can't talk on the phone. And then the guy just picks up the phone anyway, and he's on the phone. I'm like, well, I thought something bad was going to happen if he actually used the phone, but nothing really bad happened. Nothing really happened, really. Honestly, we did a lot of running around, like you said, quick cuts but really it all built to that one last scene that's pretty great, where he comes in and he does that cool kind of twitchy dance. It was kind of cool. And then like Amit said, like the weird dancing and fighting at the same time, which at this point the bar is so low I was like, this is great. You know? So I feel like that's where they brought their energy. You know, I hate to be super trashy about the film because I mean, the thing is, it frustrates me because I feel like they had the elements that they could have really pushed it. They had game actors, they had cool ideas for sets and costumes and wardrobe, but they just didn't use it.
I don't know. So, sometimes what looks like a good idea on paper can be truly ruined by Amit said, like the way something is edited can really completely change the tone and whether something works again, right? You know, it just really can make a huge difference. And also, like I said, I felt like it was something that had to be stretched, that really there wasn't enough there to support a 2.5 hour or 2 hour 20 minute length, right? There needed to be more. Something more, instead of just feeling like we were on a hamster wheel going over and over and over kind of the same things over and over again. So I don't know, it just didn't work for me, and I had heard people liked it, and I was like, okay, I'll try it. Right, it's on, I think it's on Amazon Prime here streaming in the US. And so it just didn't work for me at all.
Yeah, I'm on the same boat. It also missed the mark on a few other things, right? Like, I don't know what you guys felt about the romance. Did not feel like it was.
No, it was like
almost. Was there a romance in there?
There was almost non-existent.
There was a.
I mean, it was sort of like that she was. Yeah, she was like, "You're the villain now. I don't like you." Okay, and then they didn't do anything with it. They didn't really do anything with it. I mean,
so true.
That was not the focus of the filmmakers. It was sort of like, I guess we got to have a love interest. Okay. You know, and that was about it.
Actress make her just stand around and come out of the room every now and then and look pretty. That was really all that.
It felt very theater. People kind of going in and out, and then that one set, you know, one or two sets, kind of going back and forth, and not much happening.
The music for me also didn't work too much either. Like the songs all felt almost the same. Like I didn't really get that much of a vibe. Like I'm not gonna remember any of these songs, so I was tempted to fast forward through a few of them, to be honest. So yeah, it missed the mark on a few things, right? That's what I mean by it. Just for me, just in, you know, if the romance was good, fine, I could have latched onto that. Like, you know, if the songs were great, I could have been like, oh cool, at least had some good songs I could remember. If the action was great, I could have been like, oh great, you had some whatever said the action was good, but it's like it didn't hit the mark for me at all. I'd love to know what people liked about this movie, because maybe it's just a movie that doesn't work for me particularly. Maybe there's a particular style of movie that it's just not for me. Like maybe kind of a goofy kind of movie as well with very the actors, slapstick. Like, you know, like there's the cartoonish kind of thing, slapstick. Maybe it's just something I don't. Not my kind of movie. But look, if you did like it, I'd love to know what it was. Because it's interesting because you mentioned, Melanie, about the time travel, the other 24 movie. There's another movie called Manadu, which is absolutely fantastic. It's a Tamil movie with Simbu, I think his name is, and S.J. Suryah, who I saw him for the first time in that.
He's playing all right. Okay. Yeah, that is an excellent thriller. Yes,
that's a great movie, and he's also playing a wacky character in that, but not as wacky as this.
Right.
But on that side, at least you had someone else who was on the other extreme. It felt like so it balanced really well, and the action in that movie is done so well. Like it's actually fantastic.
I agree. That one's very good.
So they have experience with time travel. I don't know how they didn't leverage sort of some of the stuff they've seen in the past from their own industry. They don't have to go elsewhere. But interesting.
It was just kind of a big loud. I feel like it had a great trailer, and the trailer is about as long as that movie should have been. It was a 3-minute movie that they expanded into like 2 hours, but the trailer was really fun. But then you see it and you realize you can't. It felt like a 2-hour long trailer. It was like cuts, big entries and sparkle and glad, but there wasn't really the moments in between that actually qualify as story, you know, that you make you care about people. So it was I mean, and
the action suffered for the fact that I had just seen Leo, which actually had incredibly inventive action scenes showing me things that I had not really seen before. And like you said, it felt cartoonish in contrast to what I had just seen. You know, so it didn't measure. Yeah, it didn't measure up for me.
And there were no hyenas, which, you know, if you're gonna have,
all right, come on, come on.
That's all they needed. They just needed to bring a hyena into the mix, and it would have been a great movie. He could have just eaten everyone, and it'd been great. The winner. The hyena. It wins every time.
Oh God!
I don't know. This movie is probably like a hyena with a costume or something like that.
All right.
It's a wacky hyena.
So yeah, big, loud, kind of shallow, big, loud, crazy, goofy. If you're just wanting something kind of loud and crazy and sort of funny and not requiring a lot, emotion wise, maybe you'll like this movie. I mean, it's big and colorful, and you can just kind of let it.
Yeah, maybe my problem was I was not watching it in an altered state. That might have been required.
That's true. Drugs are required to watch this film. We're not saying you should take drugs. Do not take drugs. Stay in school.
Only where they're legal.
Exactly. Only in areas where you're allowed to. Yeah, exactly. But yeah.
Well, we probably bashed this film enough, but yeah, I do appreciate suffering through it together so that we can talk about it, because I was like, is this just me? Is it just me that's not vibing with this? And I was glad to hear we were all pretty much in agreement.
We were excited to watch it. I remember Melanie saying, hey, let's watch it. And then I started watching it and I texted Melanie, like, Melanie, this movie is painful. And then she realized, oh no. And then she's like, well, I'm halfway through. Do I need to finish this movie? I just watched the end. So I feel like it's on Amazon. It's easy to get. It's free. Watch it. If you're kind of getting over it a little bit, just go to the end and watch that last scene.
The last part is really good.
Once you kind of get the vibe, like Amit said, it's kind of the same thing over and over. Once you kind of get the vibe, unless you want to keep seeing this glorious, bright, crazy, colorful shit for 2 hours, go to the end and then just see that great ending. Done. I don't even know if it matters to the plot, what really matters leading up to that. You kind of get the point in like the first 15 minutes that you'll get what the point of the movie is. So I don't like trashing movies. I try and find good in all of them, but this movie was way too much for me.
S.J. Suryah is the one good thing. But that's it.
The one saving grace. He was I mean, look, one thing, he definitely had a lot of fun, I think, on set.
Yeah, so it seemed like a fun movie to make. Yeah,
for just going in there and just hamming it up as much as he possibly can. Like he didn't hold back at all. So that's one great thing. Good for him, because I don't know how much he was basically the best thing about this movie, and kind of like the lead in a way, because the main star was kind of forgettable. In some ways, so it was great for him. So I hope it gives him a bigger platform and gets into better places, because I think he was a director before. So he is
a director. He's very fine. He's a very fine director. But I particularly love him as villains. Like like Spider is a Mahesh Babu Telugu film. That is not absolutely the best, but he plays an amazing creepy villain in that, who grows up in a graveyard, and there's just this whole incredible backstory for him, and I'm like, it was. I mean, so that he was worth the price of the ticket just for him and that. So anyway, all right, thanks.
Right, it looked like a fun movie to make. I loved the wardrobe. They must have gotten in that wardrobe and felt so cool. They were just like, oh my god, I love it. You could tell when they were in that wardrobe, they're like, this is the coolest, but it just didn't translate to story. No. All right, you guys, let us know what you thought of Mark Antony. Tell us what we're missing. Like, what did we miss? If you liked it, please try and explain it to us, and maybe we can reassess it. We can watch it again. Just kidding. Yep. We won't. No way. but be sure to, if you're still here at the end of this review, be sure and subscribe. Take a look at and subscribe to Pardazy Reviews and D54. We're doing a lot of collabs. We torture each other with good and bad movies. All right. Talk to you guys later. Bye.
Thanks. Bye.